Hi everybody, it's Tracy. I'm at lunch, so I think I might call this video story time at lunchtime. Um, I've been contemplating, feeling a tug, whatever you want to call it, thinking about posting a video somewhat like this for a while, but I've been putting it off, trying to find the right time to do it, the right background, whatever. And I think if I keep doing that, uh, I'll never, I'll never put the video out. But my choice in doing this is somewhat therapeutic for myself, and I think, like a lot of people on YouTube, my desire is that maybe I could touch or help just that one person. Um, who knows? But to put a disclaimer or to premise this video, I want to say that now, later in my life, I'll be honest, I'm 50 years old, turned 50 just a few months ago, and I can say that I am in a good place with the relationships in my life. Pretty much, I guess, all of them. Specifically, sorry, I can say that I'm in a good place in my relationship with my mother and a relationship with my sister. So anything that's said in my story time videos or any in my videos from my past, that's how it was then. That's how I felt then. And somewhat, and then of course how I see things now. But specifically, my mother and I are in a good place. Could be better, probably, but there's a lot to my story. To start out with, and I don't know how long this video will be, probably not very long because I am on my lunch hour. So, sorry, I guess what I'm going to touch on is the beginning. Start at the beginning, right? I was born in 1968. The Vietnam War was going on. And back then, there was this, if you get pregnant out of wedlock and everything, it was seen, as, well, you didn't do that sort of thing. Back then, you didn't, it was a mistake, or, you had to take care of it. You put your child up for adoption, or you got married, or whatever. And I can say I was an unplanned pregnancy back in the late 60s. My mother was not married, and the man that I've always been told is my biological father was in the Army and had to serve in Vietnam. From my understanding, he didn't agree with the war. He was a tall, redhead, Irish descent, had a from what I understand, very opinionated, and had a little bit of a temper. Well, as I've been told, he was home on leave. I occurred, and they did eventually get married. He was brought home due to my mother, I guess, if I remember reading some letters, it was medical, the whole pregnancy thing. He needs to come home, get married, that sort of thing. And that was part of the reason I think he was able to come home at that time, and they got married. like I said, back in those days, you don't do those things. So the dates in which they got married were fudged in the paper when his obituary was posted, because my biological father was killed in Vietnam before I was born. So I guess my story, my story begins with the turmoil that my mother went through when she was just 18 and then turned 19 years old. My mother doesn't talk about that time in her life. She's talked very little to me about it. So how it really affected her and everything that really happened to her, I don't know. But she was 18 years old and became pregnant and wasn't married. Had my father come home from the Army on leave and got married, and if I'm not mistaken, it was June of '68 that they got married. I believe he spent a total of 2 weeks or something at home when they got married and everything. August 1st of 1968, he was killed in Vietnam. And by the time they got his body home and everything, he was buried on my mom's 19th birthday in August. So you can only imagine what she went through being 19 years old, pregnant. Not only was your husband now the person, not there for you, you're not going to build a life with this person. They were killed in Vietnam, not in combat. Maybe I'll tell that story in this video a little later, or I don't know when I'll get to the story of how he was killed. But and then burying him on your 19th birthday, and I came along at the end of October. My mother lived with her parents, and I believe that until she got remarried. My grandparents, now I was very close to this grandfather, my mom's dad, very close to him. There'll probably be more stories involving my grandfather. They pretty much made all concessions for my mom and me. I guess because she got married. How my aunt and her pregnancies were handled is a whole nother video. My aunt was older than my mom, though, by 6 years. She too was pregnant out of wedlock, and she gave her baby up for adoption. I believe it happened twice. That was a lifelong family secret. So my family also comes from holding secrets and just not talking about those things. So so my grandparents actually moved out of their master bedroom, because it had a bathroom adjoining to it, a small one, and put my mom and me in their master bedroom where she could have easy access to a bathroom and plenty of room for her bed and mine and everything. Of course, I don't remember any of this, but this is what I was told later, many years later. I don't even remember when I found out that part. And then my mom, about a year later, I guess, I was about a year old, my mom remarried. The exact story, I feel like I got stuff blowing on me through the windows, because I got too much lip gloss on. It's sticking to my lips, I feel like. Squirrel. So, I don't know if she knew my first stepdad in school, I believe, because they graduated from the same school. So did my biological dad, Halton High School in Texas. Um, but I don't. He was older, so I'm not sure how well she knew him or how they connected. I don't remember knowing that story. Maybe I'll ask again someday. But so my mom got remarried, second husband, when I was a year old. So, as we know how children develop, as we've learned a lot more over the years in this day and age with all the technology and studies and everything, and raising children and stuff. So, I was a year old, and this man was a direct part of my life. He was my father for the next 5 years until I was about 6 years old. Those are some of the most formative years of your life. Well, your whole childhood, but especially when you're really young. And he, in all, purposes and all memory, he was my dad. I didn't know any different. That I have direct memories of. My biological father's family, my grandparents, cousins, direct immediate cousins and uncles, were all kept in my life. Even when my mom got remarried that time, I was still a part of their lives. They were a part of mine. I don't recall the whole, how it was all explained to me when I was that young. But I had 3 sets of grandparents from from pretty much the get-go. And I don't remember questioning it or anything. When you're, 4 and under and stuff like that, you really don't have a lot of memories. Some people may. It all depends. Well, they built a house, got married, built a house together, moved in. It was the 3 of us. I remember a lot, pretty much all of my memories that I do have are good, except for one last one. But, just regular stuff. Family time, holidays, going to grandparents' houses for, Sunday dinners and holidays, and them coming over to ours, birthdays, all that sort of thing. And being involved in my biological my grandparents, that side of family, I was involved with them. I, spent the night with my grandparents. Like I said, I was a part of their family, and they were a part of mine. As well as this stepdad, I was a part of his family and he was a part of mine, lived with them every day. So there's bonds developed, there's relationships developed, there's trust, there's love, from both sides. So what happened next, the choices that my mom made at that time in her life, ended up being causing a direct some issues for me that I didn't even realize until I was much older. But evidently, from my understanding, my mom and her second husband had some issues trying to get pregnant. My mom had some medical problems. I don't know the extent of it. From, I don't know, she had, I think, a surgery, even, just some medical problems with her female reproductive system. I don't know the details. Again, there's a lot of stuff that just hasn't been talked about. Uh, I think my mom, to some degree, was, raised that way. Like I said, a lot of my aunt's stuff was never talked about. I'm not even supposed to know. I don't even think my aunt, I don't think ever knew that I knew that she had had 2 children and gave them up for adoption. And to this day, I have 2 male cousins that I don't even know their names. I don't even know where they live or anything. And so, from what I understand, this put a lot of tension on my mom's marriage and in their life. My mom was, I think, a stay-at-home mom. She might have worked part-time. She was a beautician, did hair, so I don't know how much she worked during those 5 years of their marriage. But, sometimes when problems arise and something happens and you think the grass is greener on the other side, well, that's more or less what happened to my mother. She met someone, a man that lived with his family down the street. And it's my understanding she ended up having an affair with this man. And she divorced her second husband to be with this man that had his own family. So they both left their families. He had children, 3 as a matter of fact. He was a little older than my mother, so his children were kind of in between my age and my mother's age, somewhat. Because I think he was about 10 years older than my mother. So when the divorce happened, and that was what I say one of the bad memories I have, is I remember there being a U-Haul in our driveway. A small one, but it still had like a ramp on it, to get up into, to put stuff in. It wasn't that big from what I remember, and I remember, it's such a vague memory, and it's only like a 2-second memory. But, for some reason, I still remember it to this day, and I was probably like 6 years old, I think. I don't remember anything else about the divorce, about them having any discussions or fights or people in and out of our house or the packing, the moving, anything. I don't remember anything else except I was playing on that ramp of that U-Haul or going up and down it. I don't remember. I remember I was facing out of it, like walking down the ramp out of the U-Haul. And I saw the man that who was my dad, come out of our house and drop to his knees in the middle of our front yard, distraught, upset, crying. Because to him, I was his daughter. He loved me and took care of me and provided for me just as if I was. Well, and I don't know the reasons, but he never adopted me. I don't know if it was because I would have lost my government benefits because of my biological dad being killed in Vietnam. I know I got some kind of monthly compensation. I don't know. I saw very little of that money. That's another story. But he never adopted me. So when my mom left him, he had no rights. He had no rights to me. So there was no ongoing visitation. This man was literally ripped out of my life. and I was ripped out of his. I remember seeing him one time. All I remember is it was like Christmas or birthday or some birthday, and he had brought me a gift. And my aunt told me she recalls that I had such a confused look on my face. I didn't know what to do, because here's the man my mom's married to now, and here's the man that I thought was my dad. You know? And you know, eventually you get told what happened, to a little bit, and you know, not the background, not the reasons, and not that it was an affair and all this stuff. It was just, you get told who's your dad and what really happened to your biological dad. You know, I was told that eventually. So there is this man that I thought that in all, you know, accounts was my dad, ripped out of my life. His parents, those grandparents, ripped out of my life. That grandmother kept in touch with me through letters a lot, I remember, and cards for my birthday and stuff for years. And I saw her maybe once or twice throughout my whole life after that. And him I've seen several, that's different times, different reasons, funerals, weddings, things like that. So that was my first taste of abandonment. My first taste of confusion and mistrust, and that was the beginning of me getting lost. Today is a better day. Today's a good day. It's a beautiful day. It's beautiful outside. The wind's blowing. Birds. The world is going. It's not good everywhere. There was a mass shooting, I believe it was in New Zealand, in a mosque yesterday. The world's crazy. I don't know who may watch this soon or who may watch this later. Maybe it'll end up being like a video diary that'll someday my kids will watch. My daughter knows, I guess, quite a bit of my story. Honestly, it's hard to remember how much I've told my son, probably very little. I need to do that, or I'm just following in the same footsteps of keeping secrets. Because there's a lot at stake in raising your children. There's a lot at stake in what you say and what you do, and how you handle situations. Be careful. Be mindful. Be loving. Be patient. If you need help, ask for it. The little things can do so much when you don't even realize what you're doing. So, you guys, that's my story time at lunchtime today, March 2019. take care of yourselves. And that's a dose of me.